This is the second part of the opening ceremony of the sixth Scientific Forum on Zakat, Waqf, Philanthropy, and Islamic Finance. And I have the honor to welcome and thank all the participants, the professors, the panelists, all who are following us in this forum. I'm talking now on behalf of the organizing committee, which committee had started its work immediately after the fifth scientific forum, which was held last year, and the recommendation was also to continue the organization of this scientific forum. I hope all the participants, and especially the doctorate Ph.D. candidates, will benefit from this forum. And as I said, this committee started from last year, first to evaluate the last fifth forum and to start the preparation for the sixth forum. This forum is organized by the doctoral formation in the Faculty of Literature in Mohammed V University of Rabat, and in cooperation with the Islamic Development Bank Institute, IRTI, of Jeddah, with the Islamic Finance Laboratory of Engineering of the Muhammadiyya School of Engineers, and the University of Muhammad I in Ujda, the Laboratory of Social Sciences and Law. This year, we have the scientific committee has approved more than 54 papers to be submitted to the panels. These papers are, in general, the themes of the thesis of PhD candidates. More than 100 professors will be parts of the panels to discuss these papers. We have 6 papers in English, 5 in French, and 43 in Arabic languages. Yesterday, we have started the opening ceremony with some opening speeches and with a very insightful lecture of Dr. Abdul Halim Zaidan from Lebanon, who talks about Zakat and Waqf approaches in the light of political economics and Renaissance, and it was very interesting, and there was a lot of debate about the content. Today we will have with us a very well-known economist, Professor Kabir Hassan, from New Orleans University, and he is also the prize winner of the Islamic Development Bank prize. I will let Adil Zorfi, he will present him a little bit later. Now, I don't know if Dr. Raja Abu Aish is with us now. Okay, I give the floor now to Dr. Raja Abu Aish to give her speech on behalf of Muhammadiyya School of Engineers.
On behalf of myself and my colleague of the Islamic Financial Engineering Laboratory, it is my pleasure to welcome our distinguished speakers and guests and all participants. Only a brief presentation of our laboratory. We recall that the Islamic Financial Engineering Laboratory was created in September 2013 thanks to the fight and effort of several contributors, and in particular the confidence and patience of Dr. Sami Ibrahim Al-Suwailim, Director of the Islamic Research and Training Institute, with the encouragement of Director of Muhammadiyah School of Engineering and President of the University. The first agreement reached its term in 2017 and was renewed the same year. Again, thanks to the efforts of all stakeholders and in particular to the encouragement of Dr. Bandar Hajjar, President of the ADB, and his interest in this laboratory. The goal of our laboratory has always been the development of the modeling of complex problems and the structuring of innovative financial products using high-performance simulation approach, such as agent-based modeling, and adopting new technology such as blockchain, widely used in fintech, in the new domain of Industry 4.0. The use of powerful design methods becomes necessity in order for a necessity in order to develop the Islamic financial industry to be competitive and sustainable. I would like to thank our colleague who organized this event, second term, and we hope that we can participate to train a competent young researcher in various fields of financial engineering, and we hope that this rich and interesting event can continue and continue for many years and can open up to other collaborators. Thank you very much. And I thank also Mr. Abd Samad Isami and all Umniya Bank for her help and for his collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Raja Abul Aish. I give the floor to Professor Yamna Fatmi. In this case, I give the floor to Brother Dr. Adil Zarfi to present our Professor Kabir Hassan. Brother Adil Zarfi, you have the floor. Brother Adil, you have the floor now. Please activate your mic. Brother Adil, please activate your mic.
Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers, professors and students, and everybody. I have a big honor to participate in this opening ceremony of the 6th International Scientific Research of Zakat, Waqf, Philanthropy, and Islamic Finance. On behalf of the organizing committee, I want to say welcome to our dear brother, Professor Kabir Hassan, and thank him again for the second time to participate with us after his valuable participation in the 5th edition of this forum. Personally, before 5 years from now, in 2017, I met Dr. Kabir in an international conference in Africa when I just ended my master degree. So I had a big honor because I used his work as a reference in my research, especially his article that was published in 2010 about the integrated poverty alleviation model combining Zakat, Waqf, and microfinance. I think that this article is very related to the topic of today, Islamic financial or Islamic social finance, and still among the research directions now and in future, because the agenda is not yet finished and it deals with different approaches for poverty alleviation, eradication strategies, tools, and so on, that the doctor already treated in his several works. And I crossed Dr. Kabir again in my Ph.D. thesis about economic empowerment and entrepreneurship. So his article about Islamic view of entrepreneurship, that was very interesting and useful for me again. So we know Professor Kabir as multidisciplinary scholars because he wrote about many topics including development finance, money and capital markets, corporate finance, investment, and list include also Islamic banking and finance and entrepreneurship. And we know him also mostly as Professor of Finance in the Department of Economy and Finance in New Orleans University, and the winner of many awards and prizes, such as the 2016 Islamic Development Bank Prize in Islamic Banking and Finance. Dr. Kabir has supervised directly many doctoral theses in New Orleans University and acted as external examiners for dissertation for many countries, and also edited and published scholarly books, textbook, and so on. And I want to seize this opportunity to congratulate him for his selection as Fulbright, US Fulbright Scholar for 2022-2023 award to study small and medium-sized businesses in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Finally, his sense of knowledge, sharing knowledge, is very appreciated. We wish him the best of luck in his contribution, for future contribution, and we wish one day to see Doctor directly here in Morocco. Why not, inshallah. So welcome again, Dr. Kabir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Adil Zarfi, for this insightful speech on our Professor Kabir Hassan, and give us a lot of information about his curriculum. Now I will give the floor to Dr. Rami Abdul Kafi, who is the team leader of knowledge team in the Islamic Development Bank Institute, IRTI previously. He will moderate the lecture, the keynote speech, But before that, I seize the opportunity to present our thanks and appreciation to Omnia Bank, who has approved generously to sponsor the 4 best papers which will be presented to this forum. They will give prizes for the best paper in Zakat, best paper in Waqf, in Islamic Finance and Philanthropy. We thank him a lot. Now, Dr. Rami, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Muhammad. Let me first thank the organizers, and especially Dr. Mustafa bin Taibi, for this invitation. I'm very pleased to be with you today to moderate this very important, interesting session. Yesterday we also enjoyed a very interesting session delivered by Mr. Abdul Halim Zidan, showing that social finance, especially Zakat and Waqf, should play more active role in economic development. In today's context, well, most of the developing countries and especially Muslim countries are struggling to cope with the challenges imposed by the pandemic and by the international context, the role of social finance and especially Islamic social finance becomes more and more relevant. Let me mention that recently in the ISDB annual meeting, we had the 16th Global Forum for Islamic Finance, and we focused on social entrepreneurship and social innovation. And the session showed that there is big interest in this kind of initiatives and this kind of subjects and topics. And I think there is a big need from the Muslim community and Muslim countries in this kind of work, in this kind of research in social Islamic finance. So in the same line of the yesterday's session, we are very pleased today and honored to have with us Professor Kabir Hassan. Of course, Professor Kabir has been introduced, and he is one of the most known scholars in Islamic finance. But please allow me to congratulate him once again for his selection as editor of the Quarterly Journal of Finance and Accounting. This was recently, so this is a very big news and very good news for us to have Professor Kabir as editor of this prestigious journal. The session of Professor Kabir Hassan today is entitled Islamic Social Finance, Future Research Direction. I'm sure and confident that this session will be very interesting and very insightful for economic researchers and students. So for this, before giving the floor to Professor Kabir Hassan, I invite all the participants to post their questions in the chat box. Also, I guess at the end of the session, we'll allocate some time for discussions. And for the housekeeping, I invite all people to mute their mics, except of Professor Kabir Hassan, to not have any issue with the sound. So I hope that we'll enjoy the session and we'll have very insightful discussions after that. So with your permission, let me give the floor to Professor Hassan to present his session. Professor, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Is my presentation showing on the screen?
I cannot see it. I don't know if others. Yes. No,
yes.
It is, we can see it.
You can see it. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, distinguished panelists and the audience, students, colleagues, scholars. I want to thank the Sixth Forum for inviting me today. Also, I want to thank personally to Dr. Adil, Dr.
Professor,
Alami,
can
and
you
also
put
Dr. Rami
your photo?
and Professor Mansur for giving me this opportunity. So I am an outsider to Islamic finance. I live in the United States. My entire upbringing has been in this country intellectually, from post-secondary education until now. But I try to learn. The thing that attracts me, of course, I'm coming from the faith, but aside from this, the value proposition that Islamic finance can present to the humanity, to the world, regardless of sex, creed, religion, whatever you believe in. It really can make a real contribution to the poverty alleviation, to the social inequality, to environmental degradation, to exploitation, everything, what's not. So I have a prepared presentation, so I'll follow my slides so that I do not drift away from my main theme that I try to do. So there are two parts to my presentation. First part is pretty much we all know, and the second part, what has been done, the research-wise, for the benefit of the future scholars. So when we talk about Islamic finance, actually it's part of an Islamic economic system. Even within Islamic finance, there are two types, and for whatever reason, these two branches are drifting from each other. One is called Islamic commercial finance, that you are familiar with, Islamic Bank, and the sponsor of this event as well. You have a bank sponsoring it, and you have Islamic development. On the other hand, it's a multi-development financial institution run on Islamic principle. On the other hand, we have Islamic social finance, the Zakat, Awqaf, Qardul Hassan, Sadaqah that we are familiar with. The question is, can Islamic commercial finance provide a helping hand? So when we talk about Islamic social finance, it is a branch of Islamic finance that offers product and services not for profit. It has also been dubbed as Islamic social safety nets, and this is also considered as charitable sector. The objective of Islamic social finance are to achieve social justice by a redistribution of wealth, and from the maqasid of Sharia perspective, it is mandatory for one to help each other in protecting one another from hardship, as one can achieve success in this world and hereafter. So Islamic social finance is an approach to managing investment that generate financial returns while including measurable positive social and environmental impact. Now there are many phases of social finance. You have the community investing, microfinance, social investment, crowdfunding, CSR, ESG, SRI, value-based intermediation, SDG, sustainability, social return, social capital, social entrepreneurship, moral values, being human, circular economy, and charitable banking. So the term, the social economy or social economy organization is not new. The social economy and solidarity economy and third sector are often used interchangeably. In Latin America, the term solidarity economy is more commonly used. In Anglo-Saxon countries, for example, the United Kingdom, refer to it as the third sector, while in continental Europe, the community use term is the social economy. So what is a definition? ILO came up with a definition in 2009. So the social economy are enterprises and organizations, in particular cooperatives, mutual benefit societies, associations, foundations, social enterprises, which have the specific feature of producing goods, services, knowledge, while pursuing both economic and social aims and fostering solidarity. Now, if you look at the market size of this social economy, there are different types. You have a type called grant. An estimated market size of this in the world is about $75 billion, approximately 5% of the total foundation assets. Then you have the project related investment and mission related investment. The project related investment are also included in the 5% grant, and mission related could potentially equal the assets of all foundations, approximately $1.5 trillion globally. Then you have the impact investment space. Using a survey published in 2020, GIM estimated that the core impact investment market is about $750 billion. And you have the development finance. The 25 HIPSO signatory development finance institution could be seen as impact investors with total asset of $724 billion, and expected risk-adjusted returns for this sector it turns out to be 10%. Then finally, you have the biggest universe, ESG finance. In 2018, more than half of the all global assets under maintenance followed some form of ESG with a market size of $54 trillion. And the evidence suggests that over 95% of the ESG is negative. Negative means they focus more on the negative screening. Now, then, as I explained, there are different types of SOE in the supply of funds. So when we talk about the quasi-equity types of financing using a loan where the repayments are in somewhat tied to the organization's success, quasi-equity behaves like shares for the organization that don't have shares. Now, can it be achieved? Maqasid of Sharia, when we talk of Islamic social finance, yes, Islamic commercial finance is inadequate to fulfill all segments of the population. It only caters to the people with wealth. But the Sharia contracts used and their objectives are different when it is used for not-for-profit purposes. An institutionalization of Islamic social finance is important to reach out to those who are in need of it. So these are the instruments that you can see on the screen. You have the Zakat, Sadaqah, Waqf, Takaful, Qardul Hassan, Islamic Microfinance Sukuk. I'm going to touch base upon all of these points one by one. So if you look at the Zakat, so this is coming from Surah Al-Tawbah. Zakat is for the poor and the needy and those who are employed to administer and collect it, and the new converts, and for those who are in bondage and in debt service of the cause of Allah, and for the wayfarers, a duty ordained by Allah, and Allah is the all-knowing, the wise. So this is coming direct quote from the Quran. So Zakat is the third pillar of Islam, and the administration of Zakat in different parts of the world is different, as some countries have centralized system collection, while other countries have a decentralized system of collection of Zakat. Now, a Islamic development study shows that each year the Zakat collection is about $230 to $560 billion worldwide. For instance, the Zakat administrative body of Indonesia, Basnas, states that the potential of Zakat in Indonesia is about 286 trillion rupiah per year, but the actual collection is only 9.5 trillion, or about 577 million USD in 2019. So there is a huge potential of Zakat collection and mobilization. Now, the problem that we see in Zakat, we have the fund collection issues, we have the fund management issues, and also the fund disbursement issues. There has been a number of organizations worldwide who are working on this area in order to make Zakat more operational and practical, and that directly connects with the development goals of each Muslim country. Then you have the Sadaqah. Sadaqah is another powerful tool. In the Quran and Sunnah, every time there is a mention of Zakat or Salat, the Sadaqah word comes in, or Sadaqah is used more a generic term. Now, prior to the pandemic, Sadaqah is physically given by many, especially during the holy month of Ramadan, while going or coming from mosque or via mosque donation funds. Sally 1999 observes that donors prefer to make their Sadaqah directly to private individuals, poor families, or private charities. This mechanism creates a win-win situation to the donor as well as recipient, as the person who donates gets the satisfaction and the person who gets it also gets the benefit out of directly to meet their consumption or other needs. Now, what are the issues in Sadaqah? Now, the question is how to increase it, how to reach out to those most deserved, and how to have a good governance mechanism, and what incentives could be provided. One of the issues that we face in Islamic gift economy, that there is a saying that you have to show piety, do not show off when you give Sadaqah. But if you can channel them in a proper way without violating the religious spirit and principle, we can channel them in a better way to address different current issues a society is facing. And in this area, technology is helping us. There are different crowdfunding technology which is mobilized to attract those sadaqah fund for different socio-economic objectives. Then you have the Waqf, is one of the cherished organization in Islamic history. There are two types of Waqf, the immovable Waqf and the movable Waqf. Immovable means the confinement of an asset by founder, and the dedication is used for in perpetuity to the beneficial welfare of the society. And the cash Waqf is the confinement of money or cash by founders, and the dedication of its use for to the welfare of the society. Now, for example, at the time of the Ottoman Empire, Waqf was a successful source of financing for health sector, education sector, and welfare of the general public, and the revenue received from Waqf contribution is over 1/3 of the Ottoman Empire's total state revenue. Now, there are several issues in Waqf. How to use innovation in Waqf property management. So you have a piece of land, the land is not generating anything, or maybe generating some crops, but how to make it a better yielding asset so that the proceeds can be used for the benefit of the poor. You know that you cannot touch the main asset, but you can only use the profit or the earnings of this profit for different activities. And how to boost confidence of those interested. There are also legal challenges in different countries, trust law versus Waqf. So those issues has to be screened out and finalized. And then also the awareness challenges. People, there are a lot of rich people in this country, in the world, and how to make them give Waqf, because you need to increase this sector. The government in a country cannot really solve all the problem. And this pandemic, the COVID has shown us how the social sector really can play is vital role. And there are, of course, the management issues of this work of land and properties. Takaful is another dimension, I would say, Islamic social finance, but not the way that has been used in the commercial sector. This dichotomy between Takaful as a stock company and Takaful as a mutuality, we need to go back to the mutuality concept. So now this Takaful came out because there is an objection of the conventional insurance. In the conventional insurance, the majority Sharia scholars believe that it is unlawful due to involvement of riba, maisir and gharar, and it was first introduced in 1979 in Sudan by Professor Sadiq Al-Dhari. He is a very famous Islamic jurist. It's not only that, he has contributed in many areas to Islamic finance. So the concept, including the operational aspects of Takaful, is different from conventional insurance. The objective of both conventional insurance and Takaful is the same. That means providing a coverage during bad times. Now, when you bring Takaful in the context of ISF, in Malaysia during this pandemic and other times, they have come up with different Islamic Takaful product in order to help the poor people so that they can get the medical help, and also the concept is used in many other ways. Now, for example, Takaful and Korma scheme of Egypt, there's another one, is a scheme that provides social guarantee Egyptian living below the poverty line, and it has been extended to support during the pandemic. In Malaysia, they have this called BSH, Bantuan Sara Hidap, and Bantuan Prihan National. They are currently insured under the scheme, the poor people, the health coverage, and the scheme will be expanded to include many more people. Now then, another item that is highly underutilized in my sense is the Qardul Hassan concept, the good loan. And there are different Quranic ayats, so let me recite one. Who is he that will loan to Allah a beautiful loan, which Allah will double into his credit and multiply many times? It is Allah that giveth you want, and plenty to him shall be you. Verily those who give sadaqah, men and women, and lend to Allah a Qardul Hassan, it shall be increased manifold to their credit, and there shall be an honorable good reward. If you lend Allah a Qardul Hassan, he will multiply it for you. Allah is the most appreciating and the most forbearing. Unfortunately, as I said, the Qardul Hassan concept is underutilized. It is a benevolent loan and a gracious loan given to needy people for a specified period, and the end of the period, the face value of the loan is to be paid off. Now, the borrower only needs to pay back the principal amount without any obligation for an additional amount. But if the borrower cannot pay, and if you forgive, and you get the reward as the lender, as the provider of fund in the hereafter. Now, the concept of Qardul Hassan has been practically implemented in Pakistan. It's called Akwat. It's a social Islamic social finance organization who uses the concept of Qardul Hassan in order to reach the poor people in Pakistan. Then we have Islamic microfinance. It is becoming big in many parts of the world. I'm originally from Bangladesh, and you know Professor Muhammad Yunus. He introduced Grameen Bank with the concept of group lending, but he uses interest in order to provide micro loan to the poor people. So we have come up with actually Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited is a pioneer in Bangladesh who came up with using the same group lending concept, but using within the context of Islamic finance, using the different Islamic mode of financing.
Professor, do you
now,
in
Pakistan, Akwat and Dunya Foundation have launched Akwat Dunya interest-free emergency loan, by which they can assist about 5,000 families, and they want to increase it. But look, the reason I'm saying it is underutilized. You have 160 million people in Pakistan, and you are reaching 5,000, 10,000 people. This is peanut. So we really have to enlarge the activities of this Islamic microfinance concept and so on. Then you can bring sukuk as well. But sukuk has a commercial dimension, also have a social dimension. When I say sukuk, I mean the social use of sukuk. Now the first modern sukuk was issued by Shell MDS in Malaysia. It was in 1990. The AUFI, if you look at, has come up with different standard definition of sukuk. There are 14 different types of sukuk is permissible according to the AUFI, and this work is growing in this area. For instance, the government of Indonesia has issued retail sukuk at inexpensive prices to support financial inclusion, and it is also planning to issue a wakaf-based sukuk where development sukuk land is underlying the project, where the return from it will be used for the development of microfinance. So what are the challenges and opportunities that we see? Currently, Islamic social finance is not merged with Islamic commercial finance. That's why I have a paper I have written a long time ago, this integrated poverty alleviation model, where you need to really need a marriage between the Islamic social finance and commercial finance. Different instruments, institutions of Islamic social finance are developed in an ad hoc manner, detached from one another. So there is an opportunity to institutionalize Islamic social finance. There is a lack of governance framework required for Islamic social finance. We need to develop, and there are different organizations are doing it. And presently, we have AUFI. I can give an example. We have Basnas in Indonesia, and I'm sure there are other organizations in different parts of the world. Now, legal, then there is a use of technology that you have to use. Okay, you don't see it. Can you see it now? Okay. So remote use of technology.
Doctor,
so there is a room to use technology.
do you hear me?
Challenges in balancing
Doctor?
demand and supply. Effective policy tools need to be formulated and adopted to ensure Islamic social finance can mobilize enough funds to reach out to those in need in investment avenues are required for sustainability. So now we can create an Islamic social capital market. That has been work done. There is a series of news item and research paper like proposed models for unit trust work-off and the parameters for the application. Khazana issues world first ringgit denominated sustainable and responsible investment sukuk. You can also bring the work-off coin or blockchain technology in the Islamic social finance as well. I want to give you an example from Brazil. So the Bolsa de Valores Sociais, or Brazil Social Stock Exchange, was launched in 2003, the Brazil's main stock exchange, as a fundraising initiative. So how does it work? So the social organizations present their different proposal to this Brazil Social Stock Exchange, and they have this internal mechanism in order to evaluate these projects, and then they send this project to the Islamic Social Stock Exchange, and they invite investors. Look, there are social projects. Then if anybody, because the Brazilian Christian country, anybody can buy these shares, so that this money will have the social activities. So this is the way in Brazil, the Brazilian Stock Exchange is integrating the social finance impact with the commercial finance impact. And of course, the intermediation fees and the cost are borne by the Brazilian Social Stock Exchange. So this is a model that we can follow if we want to develop the Islamic social capital market. Now, ultimately, the Islamic social finance wants to achieve the maqasid of Sharia. You know this, there are 5 categories: protection and enrichment of faith. You have the self, nafs, intellect, akal, progeny, nasl, and property, mal. Now, there is another variation in Malaysia started, is called value-based intermediation. Now, it is a joint work by Negara Malaysian and number of private banks in Malaysia. So the approach Malaysians implement to adopt VVI strategies is the first, it is applicable to Islamic banking. Only through the strategies could be universally applied for the whole Islamic finance sector. So they start with Islamic banks, the value-based intermediation. So this is the pyramid structure. So you start with concept, then best conduct, good self-governance, you have the entrepreneur mindset, and community environment. So there are 6 strategies. So strategy 1 for this VBI, Islamic banking industry adopts VBI, the minimizing the negative impact and promoting a more holistic observation of Sharia beyond Sharia compliance. Strategy 2, the Islamic banking institutions and the key stakeholders mutually define the underpinning thrust of VBI as a basis for collective action. Strategy 3, to show success stories of VBI as potential champions, regulators in collaboration with industry players must nurture them. Strategy 4, there should be proper disclosure made by Islamic banking institutions about their intention to adopt VBI, supported with implemented strategy and performance report. Strategy 5, a VBI scorecard need to be developed and introduced by regulator in affiliation with Islamic banking institution as a common and complementary measurement of success for the industry. And finally, strategy 6, development of effective networking through establishment of community of practitioners as well as a strategic collaboration with established value-based community needs to be established. Then you have the concept of circular economy, where you need to bring the natural balance, because this modern capitalist economy is destroying the nature to the detriment of future generation. So the circular economy model advocates for moving away from the linear economy. They promote sustainable economy by promoting sustainability and reducing waste. So to articulate why social circular economy is needed, it is best to highlight the potential shortfalls from a whole system perspective that the circular economy and social enterprise concepts can present when pursued in isolation. So let me just throw some light in the contemporary application of the law of Zakat. So we really need to revisit. So Zakat is a transactional ibadah where you have to collect, you have to measure. So many times we do not want to get into these things because we are afraid that we'll be trespassing the will of God. But here we're not trespassing the will of God. We have to pay Zakat, but the question is how Zakat should be collected, distributed, managed. Those things are not said in the Quran. In the Quran gives you the guideline and the parameters, and the Hadith explains, but there are new innovations in terms of different asset class. For example, you have the crypto asset right now. did not exist during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we really need to do our ijtihad in order to broaden the base of zakat collection and management. So there are 8 different areas that we can look at. What is the exemption limit of zakat? The question of 1-year term, the rates of zakat, condition of growth, zakat and income tax, zakat on agriculture process, disbursement of zakat, and whether incident zakat is progressive or not. So exemption limit of zakat, the Muslim scholar should focus on question to resolve the issue of nisab, like once the limit of nisab is defined, how do we levy zakat on the balance of the wealth after deducting the nisab, or it is only a defining limit for the status of the person, and once the person exceeds that limit, is his or her entire income or wealth shall be taxed, or should we consider nisab at the beginning or at the year end or at both points in time? 1-year term, the important accounting implication is that once a person pays zakat, they do not pay it again on the same wealth in the same year. While applying this principle across the board on the entire population, the zakat collecting authority has to define zakat year and cut-off dates for determining the zakat liability of every person. Therefore, Muslim scholars should try to focus on this issue and answer the questions like, what happens when you take account of any increase in the cash balances due to temporary deposit, loans, or trust funds? The rates of zakat, we have already mentioned the different rates of zakat and different systems create inconsistencies. Thus, Muslim scholars should focus on introducing a generalized formula for the rates of zakat. Conditions of growth, the orthodox scholars consider growth as a necessary condition, and because of the exclude fixed assets from the application of zakat. However, there are renowned scholars like Manzarkaf and Abu Saud consider the condition of growth as ill-founded and superfluous. Number 5, zakat and income tax. As the Muslims are obliged to pay zakat, some of them feel they are subject to dual taxation for the same income and wealth because they also have to pay income tax as the citizens of the state. Thus, Muslim scholars think that the income tax law should allow every taxpayer to declare the amount of tax to be adjusted against his zakat liability. And some countries have introduced this. I know Malaysia does it, but it does it for the corporate sector, I believe. I do not know whether they have introduced the individual sector. The zakat on the agriculture process, the agriculture produce is subject to zakat by consensus if the production is over and above the nisab. However, there is some difference of opinion about whether the zakat is payable gross or on the net value of the produce. Thus, Muslim scholars should resolve the zakat. You have to keep this in mind. The modern agriculture has changed from the time of our Prophet ﷺ. Now, this is a mechanized, large-scale, corporate-level farming. So, how you calculate zakat from these things? I'm sure there has been work going on that I'm not familiar with, but we should exercise more effort on this area. Disbursement of zakat, the Quran has prescribed 8 broad categories of people who are entitled to receive the zakat funds, but a relevant question for the present age is about spending proceeds of the zakat on development projects for the welfare of the common man. Thus, Muslim scholars should consider this issue and resolve it. And finally, progressive or regressive zakat. The concept of progressive taxation is a latter-day development in public finance and is in line with the egalitarian stance of Islam. However, the orthodox interpretation does not reconcile with the egalitarian nature of Islam. The problem arises from the belief that the rates of zakat are immutable and cannot be changed. When we talk about the poverty alleviation, so this is a sort of framework of the poverty alleviation scheme in Islam. So in Islam, there are positive measures, there are preventive measures, and there are corrective measures. So in a community or a nation or a country, the government must take positive measures. So there is an income growth, the economy is growing, taking the proper macroeconomic principles for policies implemented. There will be functional distribution of income. So a segment of the people become poorer and the other segment become weaker or richer. There has to be equal opportunity for everyone. So once you do these positive measures, the economy will grow, then you have to do some preventive measures simultaneously. You have to make sure there is the control of ownership, that ownership is not concentrated only in few families or few sectors or few areas or few regions of the country. And of course, there has to be a prevention of malpractice. And this is, corruption has become a big issue in almost every Muslim country that I have studied. And once you do positive measures and preventive measures, still you'll find some people are needy. So there comes the Islamic social finance, the corrective measures. There is compulsory transfer, zakat, you have the recommended transfer, you have the charity, and you have the state responsibility. Now the poverty alleviation problem from here suffers all the schemes of poverty alleviation which aim to assist in cash or kind have the risk of underserving non-poor queuing up for the assistance. It is usually very difficult to determine who deserves and who does not, except at the cost of violating the personal privacy of the poor and at the risk of injuring personal dignity. Some deserving people hesitate to line up for help for reasons of self-respect and personal integrity, so there is no satisfactory method of bringing such people into the social safety net. So how to overcome this problem? So number one, poverty alleviation should be made, is my position, made a private sector project. The government should operate through the private sector and not undertake any direct role. You should encourage the philanthropists to organize themselves in NGOs, enact enabling statutes, issue guidelines, create a record-keeping system and a mechanism for oversight and accountability. Number two, the law relating to poverty alleviation should define various categories of the poor and the nature of assistance for each category. For example, it should clarify if a certain category of the poor should be given a grant or a loan. Such details can be defined in the law relating to poverty alleviation. We can look at Malaysia. It has implemented some sort of gradation of who is a poor and who is not a poor according to their national income statistics. Number three, the law should provide incentives for the NGOs for registering with the government to play an effective role. Number four, the government should undertake independent poverty surveys of the entire country and to produce data and profiles of the poor in each area. The data should be available online and updated regularly. The survey should be a continuous activity. So what I'm trying to say, the government should provide the infrastructure and let the private sector do the collection of zakat, sadaqah, and use these funds for poverty alleviation. 5. It should be possible for NGOs to check from the government database the profile of every person who has applied for help from charity. Number 6. It should also be possible to draw data about persons who deserve charity but have not applied for help and thus not registered as applicants. Number 7. The government should create a compliant handling mechanism to redress any abuse or misuse of public donations by the private sector. And number 8, the government should have a mechanism protecting the whistleblowers for minimizing abuse of the public donations by organizations involved in poverty alleviation work. You can check, the AUFI has a standard and guideline for zakat management institution that could be used as a starting point for many different countries if you do not have such a mechanism in place. So let me just move to some empirics. Since I run a PhD program, I do a lot of empirical work. So I have done a series of paper on zakat, waqf, takaful, and Islamic microfinance, where I try to show through bibliometric analysis where this research is going, what is the gap, and what can be done. So this part would be very valuable for people who are master students or PhD students. Now, social and faith-based financing, such as Islamic social finance, is an important additional source of financing. We know ISF can help reduce economic inequality resulted from biased distribution of resources and wealth. We can flat the curves through economic turmoils, protect weak and vulnerable segments of the society, long-term social improvements aiming for poverty alleviation. Now, the academicians' contribution, if you look at this, academicians have contributed largely to these topics after 2008 crisis. Efforts in these fields are lacking to systemic synthesis of the literature to use on interested stakeholders. We carried this project of 3 papers in Zakat, Waqf, and Islamic microfinance to summarize the researcher efforts. So if you look at the research in Islamic finance is growing upward, same for Zakat and Waqf as well. Now, these papers, we provide a performance analysis of literature, productiveness citation. We provide content analysis through various clustering techniques. We provide future research directions based on the literature gaps. We use bibliometric, this is a very well-known technique. We use all the methods that are enshrined according to bibliometric or scientometric analysis. Then the question comes in, which database you look at? All these papers that I have done, I have used the Scopus database. I did not use Google, which is too large, and Web of Science is too restricted. Now, there are different softwares available, so this is not, even if you are not econometrically that astute or have very deep understanding, you can use the different software in order to run this analysis. So if you look at the Zakat, so if you see on the screen, Malaysia is the largest country which produces the largest number of research in this area. And if you look at which are the journals which produces Scopus-based journal, so these are the 10 journals that I mentioned. I'm going to share all these papers to the organizers so you can distribute to the scholars who are interested later on. So most cited sources and authors. So Journal of Islamic Accounting and Business Research on the right hand side, there are 10 different authors that I mentioned who have published a lot in this area. The most cited documents like Scott J. Resistance to the Protest and Other Organization, Peasant Opposition to Islamic Zakat and the Christian Tithi, 1987, Comparative Studies in Society and History. Then you have number 10, Nicholas Calder, Zakat in Imam Shafi's Jurisprudence from the 10th to the 16th century. It came out Bulletin of the Social and Oriental and Africa Studies. So this gives you what the most important papers in this area. Now, you as a researcher want to see what are the research questions that I still can explore. So I have categorized them into different Zakat management, Zakat collection, Zakat distribution, development of Zakat institutions. So if you look at Zakat management, what does the development Zakat in the advent of Islam looks like? Success and various factors in the effectiveness of Zakat institution, construction of rating index on the perception of the parties who deal with Zakat centers, exploring the new source of Zakat funds with the emergence of new sources of income reflected by the use of technology, development of a comprehensive performance measurement system Zakat institution. Is there an effect on Zakat collection because of the pandemic-19? To what extent is the Zakat compliance behavior of Muslim in non-Muslim majority countries? What are the vulnerable groups that have less access to Zakat funds? What is the role of Zakat in handling issues raised from COVID-19? What are the major barriers of Zakat implementation in non-Muslim majority countries like in the United States? Is there an indirect effect of Zakat in improving quality of life, such as improving happiness, enjoyment, reducing divorce rate, reducing crime rate? The role of Zakat in achieving sustainable development goals. What are the components of platform application needed to improve efficiency of Zakat institutions? Standardization of accounting treatment for corporate Zakat among corporations. So each of these points could be a point of a further research. It could be a point of master's thesis even for a PhD dissertation. Now then, if you look at Waqf, again Malaysia tops the list, the countries which do the most amount of Waqf research. And if you look at universities, University of Utara Malaysia is number 1, Islamic University and 12, and Islamic University of Malaysia has the highest number of publication from the database that you have analyzed. Most cited authors, the names are given there, and if you read the paper that has already been published, you can find out what are the articles. So, you know, when you teach a class in master's class or PhD class, so if you give the readings for your students, so these are the papers they should read to get an idea what is going on in this area. Now, if you look at the Waqf, what is the future research question? So, cash Waqf dominates in current discourse. The cash Waqf endowments for sustainable development. So, the research gap I say what are the contribution has been done. So let's take the first point for the sake of time. Cash work-up model for poverty alleviation that promotes good governance and identifies key stakeholders. What are the research gaps that exist? The conceptual model needs to be empirically tested for its practical application and generalizability. Cash work of implementation procedure could be different in other countries. Therefore, there is a need to perform a comprehensive analysis of cash worker products and implementation strategies countries with similar and diverse demographics. So empirical results may not be generalizable and require more evidence from different countries. So you see a series of research questions. What is the most effective mode of cash worker based microfinance model for sustainable development? What is the role of Islamic banks in developing cash worker based Islamic microfinance? How can governments in emerging Muslim economies integrate cash work-off in achieving social development? What are the Sharia standards with regard to maintaining perpetuity cash work-off contribution? What is the proper use of cash work-off fund? How effective is the integration of takaful and work-off certificate in cash work-off models? And what is the role of regulation in strengthening donor trust in work-off institutions? So there are also other questions that I mentioned in my paper, and what are the representative authors that should look at. For example, how do work-off institutions discharge their accountability? What are the reporting standards adopted by work-off institutions and why? What are the key dimensions of work-off accountability? What is the regulatory environment best suited for work-off organization? Fortunately, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. AOFI has done a good work on this work-off institutional management. You can look at it, and also there are different other research organizations throughout the world to help you with this. Now also you can look at the good governance perspective. So what are the determinants of work-off reporting practice? What is the most effective internal control approach for work-off? In what extent good governance affect the performance of institutions? What is the role of broad, efficient work-off management? What are the standards of good governance for work-off institutions? So when we talk about research, there are academic research, conceptual research, and there is a practical research. So there has been tons of work has been done in fiqh literature on this Islamic social finance, in the Arabic literature. Unfortunately, the English-speaking world do not know or have access to this literature. So it could be a good job if we can translate those Arabic words into English to benefit the English-speaking world or the world in general. So that could be a research area. And when you talk about all these questions, you take these questions from a comprehensive way. You go with the Sharia basics, then you look at the empirics. If you need to generate data to answer what is the impact of this social finance, you really make your hands dirty. You need research dollars so the data can be generated and so on. Finally, you have the takaful. These are the authors. You can look at. These are the most influential documents. So there I mentioned some of these papers here and what are the nature. For example, Abdul Qadir Atel, the cost-efficient takaful insurance companies. It came with the general papers on risk and insurance, issues and practices, and the database they used was Islamic Insurance Directory, and the nature of the paper is empirical. If you take, for example, NIFER 2014, credit default swap instead of credit default sharing instead of credit default swap toward a more sustainable financial system. It came up general economic issues. That's a conceptual one. If you look at Noor and Abdurrahman 2016, Cooper Takaful Non-Banking Financial Institution, this is the intellectual discourse, is a theoretical paper. So this gives a snapshot of both theoretical and empirical paper in order to do research in this area. So there are different research teams, takaful overview, growth and models, governance mechanisms. So let's do a couple of things for each. What are the future research questions? What are the similarities and differences in interpretation of Sharia laws with respect to different school of thoughts and jurisdiction? What are the steps required to have standardized Sharia supervision and regulatory framework for the takaful industry? Development of financial products with a special focus for takaful market. Do takaful activities for economic growth? Do institutional environment matter in shaping the beneficial mechanism or risk sharing in the takaful industry and its impact on growth. If you look at the governance mechanism, does Sharia Supervisory Board improve the efficiency of takaful firms as compared to conventional insurance? What is the impact of Sharia Supervisory Board and corporate governance on profitability of takat? There are plenty of studies investigating the impact of assessment performance and risk-taking behavior Islamic banking, but further detailed studies are required to study the impact of corporate governance and SSB on risk-taking behavior takaful industry. What is the impact of national culture on the stability and risk-taking behavior of takaful firms? Does the corporate governance and SSB mediate the impact of national culture on the stability and risk-taking behavior of takaful firms? So these are some ideas we can look at, and takaful supervision and customer. So you can look at from the marketing perspective as well. Most studies on demand for takaful products and determinants are restricted to a country or a city in a specific country. Future studies require with larger samples investigating cross-country variations and demand for takaful products and services. What are the implications of different marketing and behavioral theories for takaful industry? Are takaful customers really faith-driven? What is the role of the financial and religious literacy on the preference of takaful over conventional insurance? So then you have finally Islamic microfinance. Again, Malaysia tops the country, and the right hand side the different journals. The journal that I edit, Islamic Journal of International Journal of Islamic and Middle Eastern Finance and Management. And there are also other journals in this area who publish research. These are the top scholars. Abdul Ghaffar Ismail is #1. I also have some papers here. Now the most cited documents. So we follow a similar framework in order to analyze in this all these Islamic microfinance tools that has been used in different countries. And when you talk about Islamic microfinance, this is a wide, very heavily researched area. What are the research streams that you can look into further? Stream 1, Islamic microfinance, principles, performance and problems. Islamic microfinance for sustainable development. Islamic microfinance for female empowerment. The role of the banking sector in operationalizing Islamic microfinance. So you can study rural development scheme. It is a microfinance scheme, Islamic microfinance scheme developed by Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited. This is the pioneer, and Islamic microfinance is the largest in Bangladesh because of this bank's contribution in this area. So that basically concludes my presentation. Here are some of the papers. You can look at my own and some others that I mentioned. And I want to acknowledge my debt to all the scholars in the past and my students, my co-researcher from which I have learned and also interjected into my presentation today. And thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Kabir, for this very interesting presentation that gives really very good insights for future research, and it shows the need for the research in different areas and the importance of social finance in different areas that would be very interesting for policymakers, for researchers, and for all Muslim countries and all over the world, for developing countries and even for developed countries. Let me, with your permission, open the floor for any question regarding the presentation. Unless, Brother Muhammad, you have any other intervention after Professor Kabir, I will open the floor for the discussion.
What's the question, please? Anyone want to intervene from the floor, please? No, doctor, no.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Muhammad. I cannot see the audience in the room, but for the people who are connected online, please, if you can raise your hand if you have any question to Professor Kabir. So let me start with Dr. Abdul Shashi. Sure, please.
السلام عليكم دكتور رامي، السلام عليكم دكتور كبير، السلام عليكم أدرس منصف بن طيبي، محمد العالمي, عمر الكتاني and others. جزاكم الله خير. Thank you very much for this conference and for this seminar which comes every year So Alhamdulillah. I was just wondering that Dr. Kabir was speaking about, of course, he has to introduce these things, Zakat and Awqaf. We thought we know this one, but when it comes to the end, when he starts showing us the different research needed and the method, the different where the research is needed, so that is very interesting for the researchers, for the professors, and for the students themselves. They would know what kind of research they need to do and where it is needed and these things. So it was really impressive. Thank you very much. That's all I want to say. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Qadir. Any other question from the colleagues? Dr. Adil, Kaffi, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah again, and thanks again to our dear Dr. Kabir Hassan. Actually, I have one comment, one request, and one question. For the comments, the third research stream proposed by Dr. Kabir, I would prefer to be Islamic microfinance for economic empowerment, and not only female empowerment, because this is my area of research and study to be so large. And I want to seize the opportunity because he evoked one important point about translation. Because we have a big problem even with our students here, for example, in Morocco, when they want to research about one area, so especially practical and technical areas, most of the references are in English, in Asia. So they find difficulties in their research because maybe translation effort in this domain is still weak. And in contrast, if we look in the theoretical and conceptual area of research, especially in Zakat, Awqaf, Maqasid, and Sharia in general, I think the Arabic bibliothèque is very rich. So maybe we need some coordination. It is the request, for example, from IDB and RT to make some effort in this domain, to make coordination updates about this knowledge to be shared among researchers. Fourth question, so maybe students, or because I am teaching the risk management in Islamic finance, they ask us often about the risk management in Islamic finance and in microfinance or in social finance, zakat, waqf, and so on. So we are trying to give some answers to make some ijtihad in this area. I would like if Dr. Kabir have some ideas to share with us about risk management in social finance in general. And thank you, audience.
Thank you very much.
Rami, or wait.
If you allow me, in the same line of the request or the question of Dr. Adil, because I've seen that one of the main messages that you have mentioned in your presentation, you said that poverty alleviation should be a private sector project. So I think this is a very big message and very important for the future research. I think one of the most difficult challenges is to get the private sector involved in this kind of social projects and social finance projects. As I said, one of the main areas on which we are focusing in the ICB Institute is social entrepreneurship, how to make private sector interested in this kind of social projects. I'd like to listen from you. How do you see the key message or the key orientation that we should explore in order to have the private sector as much involved as we need in the poverty alleviation and the social impact, social finance sector? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Adil and Dr. Rami. I think actually I learned from your contribution. So let me start with Dr. Adil. Actually, when it's a women empowerment, that is a sub area that you can focus, because there are, also supervised dissertation in Morocco as well. we cannot really develop as a Muslim society, leaving behind 50% of the population roughly, right? 50% of sisters, daughters, and mothers. Yeah, there are different roles they have to play within Islamic context, but Islam doesn't say that we have to keep them away from the economic sector as well. Of course, they are involved in non-market economic sector, raising family and so on, taking this into consideration. So how can these instruments also can target this female population? But by saying this, I'm not meaning that I'm taking it out from the bigger overall objective. Number two, you rightly said that I missed this point. The reason I was thinking from my side on the translation, because I do not know Arabic. Of course, I can read Quran, but without understanding. So that part, that bibliothèque, is Sharia and all these things, very rich. And we debate in the West, English speaking, do not know much. But there has been, 1400 years of scholarship, a rich scholarship, and we do not benefit from it. But you're right. On the other hand, I forgot, from the empirical side, or the concept, from the Western framework, there has been a lot of work done that the Arabic-speaking world do not benefit from. So there used to be one organization whose job was to translate. If you look at the Islamic history at the beginning, one of the biggest department was the translation. That's the way Islam really brought the Latin and Greek civilization, all the writings, through the translation to the Western world. So that tradition must be brought back so that we can have a one common language. Ideally, I always say that as a person of a Muslim faith, Islamic faith, he or she should know 3 languages for sure. One is the mother tongue, one is the Arabic, this is the language of the Quran, and English. So because English has become widely, now unfortunately that is not happening. In the United States, yes, our kids, they are American, they speak English, they know their mother tongue. Of course, you take them to the mosque, they know how to read Quran. But in a sense that you can understand, and that should be also in a long-term thinking, we want a pan-Islamism. We want to bring all the brothers, sisters, all creed, color, and different, the faith, Islamic faith together. And a language could be a biggest barrier. Language could be also bring us together. And the third one that I'm coming to Rami, that you're talking about, this is my understanding. Islam is an entrepreneurial religion. No other religion is like this. In the Quran and the Sunnah, you pay, then you spread to the world to earn your living. And in Islam, the partnership has been promoted. You do a risk-sharing finance. When the riba was introduced, the risk-sharing component has been diluted or has not been proportionate. And Islam believes in market mechanism. Let the market operate without any constraints. Unfortunately, in an even capitalist world, they control the market, they constrain the market. The entire world through the pandemic, you have noticed the supply chain problem, and we suffer the rest of the world. Right now, Ukraine and Russian war, that is also hurting not only oil, also our grain, because this happens to be this area, Ukraine and Russia, is a 30% producer of wheat, for example. So when I talk about this thing, you really need to actually eradicate riba from the society. Now you are talking about this, just think the simple, some of the countries are trying to replace dollar as a method of payment. That really shook up the Western world, United States particularly. Because if you lose this is another way of controlling other people, the trade mechanism and so on. And we really need to get out of this thing. And riba is another thing. The Western capitalist society is based on the concept of riba. Right now, yeah, they let us do Islamic finance. They say, okay, it's a good idea. But once you reach a certain critical level, we right now less than 1% of the total, the world financial system. When you reach to 5%, 10%, then they will start acting against us. Because this is something they'll find out their profit margin is eroding. People are becoming more better, they cannot control. So that jihad has not started yet. We are still at a very early stage of the preaching stage. So in order to be ready for our future generation, we really need to be equipped both in mathematics, writing program. Right now, all the research that we see is a very rudimentary level. Even there are not enough Islamic finance journal which will publish your paper. So why? Because we are not really getting to the mainstream academic world. If we can make some convert, and they understand and see the value of it, that will also be helpful to us. So my role, because of my location, I live in the United States, and I do have connection with the Muslim world and the Western world. So one of the roles that I have been, consciously playing is trying to bridge this gap, trying to bring this. People don't know there's some treasure. Look, Islamic social finance, value-based, because everybody talks about these things internally. But the question is how to operationalize this. So that operationalize, I believe, can be done in a market or freely on an individual basis. Now, of course, the 3 points that I have said, the government has to do its job. It has to create the environment. You have to provide the infrastructure. Let's say if you give the zakat management and distribution to private entity, the private entity need to know what the poor people. That will be prohibited for them to do this. But if the government provides all those data and have a proper regulation in place and supervision in place, we can say the private organization can be more efficient. And this is also the historical data I'm talking about. The government institutions historically, even in the United States, are less efficient than private sector. So my understanding is coming from there, not to replace, because I haven't seen any other way. The wakf properties in many countries, even you have Morocco, are being misappropriated. Not even the ownership has been transferred from government to wakf to private hands in Bangladesh. So those kind of things that tells me that we need a mechanism where there is more accountability. So that's the reason I'm coming from. If the government can do it, fine. But I haven't seen a single example where the government is providing this. IDB is a multilateral organization that's outside the government. It gives grants and donations. So this business model is different than when you try to do poverty alleviation within a country. And the question is, whether the government or the private sector. I tend to believe private sector can do a better job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor. Let me give the floor to Brother Yusuf Lamrani. Yes, sure, and then I will go back to Dr. Shashi. Brother Yusuf.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank our Professor Kabir Hassan for this interesting presentation. I really appreciate the introduction of different modes of Islamic social finance, such as Zakat, Waqf, Sadaqat, Takaful, microfinance, as well as giving some new research direction. He also highlights the need to develop more creative models based on fintech solutions like the crowdfunding and blockchain technology, etc. that I found very interesting. I have two questions. My first one, are there any successful experience about the marriage between fintech solution and Islamic philanthropic mode of financing? My second question, actually are remarks. We talk often theoretically about Islamic concepts or mode of financing, but everyone can notice that such concepts still rare in practice. I'm asking, where is the issue exactly? It is because such concepts are not promoted enough, or are they less competitive? So if Prof. Hassan can give us give us some explanation. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent question. First of all, technology is value neutral, right? Basically, in all economic transactions, trade or anything you mentioned, the transaction cost plays a very critical role. If you can combine the development in technology in Islamic social finance or Islamic commercial finance, which they are using it. You have the mobile banking, you have online banking. So these are all good, and that should be promoted. But I think there is a craziness going on right now, crypto asset. You know, this is still an evolving asset. I have written papers too. I have two sides to it. You know, some sides said, okay, as an innovation, as a scientific innovation, technological innovation, is a good idea. But the question is, when you try to implement it, you have to make sure that that does not violate the basic principles of Islamic Sharia or Islamic finance. So what are the one riba has not, riba is no. The gharar part has to be checked very carefully. Uncertainty part, excessive thing. So those are the things very often you forget. So in sum, yes, we welcome technology. We should study it, and we should make sure the technology gives us or consistent with the maqasid of Sharia of Islamic commercial finance as well as Islamic social finance. Second question, brother, I have been thinking about ever since. You know, every time if I go to a party and people know that I do Islamic finance, they want to have an answer in a party sense in 5 minutes. Tell me why. You talk about all these things, but I do not see any difference. So they go to an Islamic bank and a conventional bank, and they treat you the same way. Sometimes Islamic banking product is more expensive than conventional banking product because of this transaction cost involved. Now, how can we see the theory in practice? In order to do this, for Islamic banking, I can tell you that we have taken a wrong model. This conventional commercial banking model is unsuitable or inconsistent with the spirit of Islamic finance. So first thing that we need to do, we need to get away from this banking model to non-banking model. That is the starting point one. Starting point two, I have done a lot of informal survey and formal survey. A Muslim is whole. Of course, you have a connection with God, ibadah, nobody can ask you a question, but you have the other life. Allah has made only a very few things haram for you, right? And the rest of the world has been made halal to you. But those who follow the ritualistic, they become so ritualistic, they forget the rest of the dunya. And those who are into dunya, you forget about the ibadah part. So we need to really increase the social capital based on Islamic values. And that Islamic values is very much absent, I must tell, in every Muslim country. We are very good in preaching, but not in practicing. But the West does not preach, they practice our values. I can tell you, I can follow my deen or faith or the ritualistic part of Islam better in New Orleans, which is a red state, it's a Trump country, than I can do it in my own country. There is a freedom of religion guaranteed by the Constitution. So the relationship between you and God, they do not question. And Islam also doesn't question. I cannot really say someone, you are kafir, mushrik. I do not know. But I can judge someone from the muamalat part, relationship with me, how he is conducting his business. You worry about one example I can give you. You worry about so much about whether you're giving a loan, whether it's based on murabaha, mudaraba, musharaka, whatever. But you do not worry the loan, the Islamic facility that you're giving to the company, whether the company is treating its employees fairly. That is an Islamic principle, right? Whether that company, the product that is producing, what is polluting the environment. You never ask this question. So we really need to bring those things in Islamic finance. And Islamic social finance gives you a better avenue to do this. Islamic finance is by very nature is green. We don't need SDG principles. It's already here in Islamic concept. But unfortunately, we do not implement it. We do not practice it. To answer your question, brother, we have to start practicing and we have to advocate this. We have to keep the pressure on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let me give the floor to Dr. Shashi. I think he has another personal.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Dr. Kabir, you have mentioned about citation of papers, mostly in English. Myself, I have a paper when I go to my Academia website. I have a paper in Arabic that is read more than 1,400 times and it's cited more, but it is not shown in the Google Scholar, for example. Google Scholar only shows the citation on the English papers. How to get noticed or how to get cited in the Google Scholar and other, and also I have student doing an Arabic paper research, Ph.D.s and Masters, but they cannot publish what is the Scopus papers that accept Arabic papers and get them notified and noticed.
Okay, in short term, the Arabic world has to force Google and the Google Scholar. They also have to create an alternative Google Scholar site in Arabic. Without that, you will not be cited. I'm sorry to say this. But the second part, more practical part that you can do, you have this Arabic research is done, you translate this and then you put in the Google Scholar, then people will read it, and actually I will benefit from your research. And so you make this as a practice, because all this university crazy, whether you have a Scopus article or this and that and so on, they don't really rely on the Google or anything like this. So I would advise you, whenever you do this, I do not know what is the language requirement. They do write in the main thesis in Arabic, but let them, not the main thesis, but when they, write papers out of the thesis. Let's say a thesis can come 3 papers. When they write a paper-like length, tell them to write also an English translation of this, or use this English translation service, and then you can send it to different journal, then you can send it to Google Scholar. That is the immediately you can do. But long term, your country should force Google, hey, look, you need to have a database based on Arabic language. You have
Is it country or universities or student who will claim these things?
It has to be in a collective sense. The country itself, the student will not help, because they will not listen to student or university. When a country, a group of countries, or OIC tells that, hey, look, we have this research scholarship and people don't know this, but the question is you have to take it to that level. So the policymakers have to think about it. When you go to a conference, when you go to a party, when you say powerful man or policymaker whose word matters, you really need to start talking about this thing. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. I don't see any other question from the online audience. I don't know in the room if they have any question. Let me give the floor back to Brother Muhammad Alami for saying a few words and maybe to close the session. Thank you very much. Brother Muhammad, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kabir Hassan, for this very insightful lecture, and for Dr. Rami for moderating it. I thank Professor Dr. Hassan, Kabir Hassan, a lot for honoring us with his very insightful lecture, which it is a thought-provoking and scholarly lecture. It is really a document that any researcher in Islamic social finance should consult and benefit from. Dr. Rami, thank you very much for moderating this lecture, and through you, we thank the Islamic Development Bank Institute and Dr. Sami and all who have helped us in this and cooperated with us in this forum. Thanks to all the cooperating institutions, the Mohammed First University of Wajda, the Muhammadiyah School of Engineers, and the Zakat Association, etc. Again, thank you all. And now that I also thank the organizing committee and with its able leadership, and Brother Monsef bin Tayyibi and Salah Nashat, Adil Zarfi, and all who have the Umari, and all who have participated in the organization of this seminar. I would like now to announce. Okay, I will announce the coming dates for the next sessions. We have now the one day dedicated for Zakat will be on Thursday, 21st July. There will be 4 sessions in the same time. 4 sessions. Each session will be a panel of 3 professors with a student. Then they will discuss the thesis of these students. On Saturday, 23rd July, we have the Waqf. It will be a day dedicated for Waqf. And the 26th July, Tuesday 26th, it will be on the philanthropy. And 28th. Okay. And 28th also it will be on Islamic Finance. It will be a Thursday. The closing day will be association will be on Saturday, 30th July. We'll be honored to have Professor Muhammad Rugi, who is a Sharia scholar, very well known in Morocco, and Dr. Omar Kettani. Now I give the floor to Dr. Omari for his. He has something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's an honor for me to participate with you in this appreciated forum about Zakat, Waqf, philanthropy, and Islamic finance. I hear very attentively the Dr. Kabir about the future directions on Zakat, and I notice 4 elements that are very important, which is management of Zakat, collection of Zakat, and distribution of Zakat, and developing institution of Zakat. I think these 4 elements are very important, given that they focus on the management of the Zakat. This is why it is important to make an equilibrium between theory and practice. And in this direction, I think I could make some suggestion. I can suggest that students in Islamic studies could work jointly with students of other scientific specialties from economic, financial, or national school, Moroccan School of Engineering, EMI, École Mohammedia des Ingénieurs. This is why, the target will be to make mutualization between scholar and Sharia students. Studies and other specialty, and in this way we can accomplish the vision developed by some of the famous scholars in Morocco, like Mr. Hassan Al-Hassani Bil-Bashir and Mr. Busleham Rahmatullahi alayh, which when they talk about the comprehensive vision of Islamic finance, الشمولية. And I think this is what I want to say, and thank you very much.
Okay, also I seize the opportunity to thank all the technical team with the technical team who has helped a lot in the transmission of this forum through social media and through the teams through Teams. Now I give the floor to Dr. Professor Kabir Hassan. Do you have any thing to add? Any comment?
you can connect with me if you need any research help or any paper, I will be happy. And actually, anytime. So my door is open, and also I will be contacting you as well when I need help. Thank you very much again. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, thank you very much. We will send you the list of English papers. If you would like to participate in one or two, it will be an honor for us. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to the Brother Mansif bin Tayyibin.
Thank you very much, Professor Kabir Hassan, for this opportunity. We listened to your conference with very big interest, and we present our thanks, many thanks, and you hope you will with us in future events, inshallah, in Morocco, if possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, if no one have anything to add, we will close, inshallah. Thank you, Dr. Rami again, Brother Adil Zarfi, Professor, Brother Farid Amar, all the organizing committee, and especially the technical committee, Sister Rami, and her assistant for helping us to broadcast this conference. Thank you very much, and we'll be happy to see you all on the next session. Thank you very much.